welcome. And tonight we have a special guest. It's a friend of mine and a man I have admired for a long time. Tom Leichardt, is that the correct way
Yes,
to
yes.
pronounce it? Yeah. And Tom, I've known you for 3 or 4 years. I've been a fan of you for 3 or 4 years since seeing the Seth conventions, because you are a Sethi and you're pretty famous in the Seth community. Isn't that right?
Well, I guess known to some degree because I've spoken at some other conferences. I don't know, famous is kind of a big word, but
Yeah.
people have heard of me here and there, I suppose.
Yeah, I think people know who you are, and one of the things that I sort of that captured me was your presentation on out of body experiences. And I think you
Yes.
had 2 or 3 of those presentations, and I remember watching them from start to end, and it was just great. And I thought to myself, I would so much like to meet this man and just empty his brain for all his knowledge, because I've tried those out of body experiences, and I reached to a stage where I started vibrating and all that, but
Right.
never, yeah, but never, did the magic jump. I had some lucid dream sort of experiences that I remember, but otherwise, no, nothing consciousness. So that's one of the things I would like to pick your brains about this evening. It's evening here in Denmark. You're from, I don't know, San Francisco, I think, or
Yeah, Bay Area,
Bay
so
Area. Yeah,
it's noon time here, yeah.
yeah. So could you perhaps tell us a little bit how you started on this journey and how you fell over Seth? What made you become a Sethi?
Right. Well, I just want to start by saying, yeah, definitely my brain is here for the emptying, and I'm happy to be here and to share whatever experience I have, and hopefully that inspires others to really take charge of their own lives, including their non-physical, multidimensional selves, and to really begin to peek behind the curtain, and just see what we're made of. Because in my heart, I'm an explorer of consciousness, and I'm
Mm.
curious about the mechanics of manifestation here in the physical as well as the non-physical realms. And the more I do this work, the more I realize it's the same thing, that the physical reality is another dream that the soul is having. It's just that we've crystallized it to such a high degree that it appears to be more real than the other realities we experience in the nighttime.
Exactly.
And as you do these practices, you recognize that it's all a version of a dream, and you can learn to awaken not only in nighttime dreams, but also in this physical dream. We can literally become lucid in waking as much as lucid in dreaming. So that's what's very exciting, because this
Yeah.
is about creating the life of your dreams, literally.
Yeah, amazing.
So,
Yeah, I heard of this becoming lucid or during DMT experiences, where
mm,
suddenly the reality started to disappear around you, and the real reality looked much different. Nothing like these walls we have around us. So is that experience something like that, or how is that transition into the other reality? The
well,
framework
it's
too.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned DMT because that is a molecule produced in the pineal gland.
Yes.
And that is what at least what I believe my understanding is, that is being activated during the out-of-body experience. Now, it's not something you ingest necessarily. It's something that your body produces. And when you go into these states, there is a chemical reality behind the experience. Of course, we can program ourselves to go there without any additional help from any other friends, shall we say.
Yeah.
And that's the direction I'm leaning into, because those things are great permission slips to get us into the state. But once we know how to open that door, we don't really need to use that same permission slip again. But I don't have anything against it. It's just
Yeah.
once you're very conscious in how you can do this yourself, you just realize, it's kind of
Yeah.
extraneous.
Yeah.
And so
It's
you can train.
like learning to ride a bike. I mean, it seems impossible, and then when you get the hang of it, I mean, you never forget it. You know it. You can just do it
Right.
anytime.
Yes, and
I
it's
could
also
imagine.
It depends on the degree of relevancy and the particular theme you're exploring.
Yeah.
And there'll be certain phases in your life where it'll be easier to induce these states, and other times where you might actually find yourself being more physically focused and having more of a challenge. So that comes in waves as well. So, unlike learning to ride a bike, it seems like it's always there.
Yeah.
This is something that it comes in waves, and there'll be certain periods where you just have the propensity. You won't even try. You'll just be going out of body. There'll be other times where you're inducing the experience, and you might be finding that it's not particularly available at that particular time. And then you have to ask yourself, perhaps there are things in my physical life that need more attention, or perhaps the awakening now, it's time to integrate my experiences into the physical. And then when I get that lesson, when I integrate what I've learned in the out-of-body and the physical, then a new vista opens up for more out-of-body experiences. So
Yeah.
there's a deep intelligence to when these states are available to you and when they're less available. So that's part of it as well.
Well, it seems they haven't been available much to me, and I've tried. I mean, well, maybe I haven't tried fully because now there are several methods and techniques to do this during sleep, as far as I know, and there's something about that you have to wake up early in the morning, 4 or 5 o'clock, and try to do it
Yes.
there because that's the most effective time.
Yes.
Uh, and I've been a little bit bad at waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and if I do, I fall asleep again. But I've reached stadiums where I get this vibration in my body, and I know that this vibration is a precursor to the real body get out
Yes,
of body.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. And let me just back up and say that these experiences, when I say not available, I mean not available to your waking personality, because we're having these experiences constantly. We are multidimensional beings, so there's portions of us that are existing in these non-physical dimensions, all the time, so to speak. And,
Yeah.
that
That's
it's another
difficult.
kind of
Yeah.
worms about the,
Yeah.
the simultaneative time. That's another kind of worms. But the
Exactly.
idea is the availability of the experience of your physical personality to integrate it. And so, yes, there are many techniques, and part of it is just finding one that really works for you, and not judging ourselves when things don't seem to work out as planned.
Yeah.
Following that formula that comes from Bashar really applies to this as well. It's follow your passion to the best of your ability with zero insistence on a particular outcome and staying in a positive state no matter what happens. That right there, that especially that third part, zero insistence on a particular outcome, that is incredibly important, because as soon as we start judging ourselves for not having the experience,
Yeah.
or beating ourselves up, or being stressed, like I really need this to happen, it's like that really actually closes the door.
Isn't that also a way to live your life, actually? Isn't there a life
Absolutely.
lesson? Because I can recognize that method, or in my that's how I try to live my life, actually, and I've never been happier
Absolutely.
as a 54-year young person. And
And
I,
that's part of
yeah,
the key, really, is when you learn to become lucid and waking through following that formula, because passion is the translation of your non-physical energy into your body. And when you act on that, you're grounding more of your soul, spiritual energy into your life through your action and projecting it out into the world.
mhm,
That is lucid awakening, lucid waking. And that will
okay,
follow into your dream states, and you'll become more lucid and dreaming because you're becoming more consciously aware of how you're running your soul's energy. You're opening up to more aspects of your energy. And so it's naturally going to open up the lucidity in the dream time as well as in the physical.
yes. I think maybe for people who doesn't know what lucid dreaming is, could you explain a little bit about what it really is, that out-of-body experience we call lucid dreaming? I don't know if it's the same concept.
So there's many ways to frame it, and you'll hear the, various speakers define it in different ways. So I'm just going to tell you that this is one way to describe it. So I see it as a continuum of consciousness. So you have your waking consciousness, and as you bring more of your waking consciousness into the dreaming state, you have what we call a lucid dream. So you have the awareness, I am dreaming. This is a dream. Therefore, if this is my dream, then I have some leeway in what happens here. I am not unconscious anymore. I'm becoming conscious. So that's the lucid dream state. You realize, oh, this is a dream. You can upgrade that to the out-of-body experience, and this shift of consciousness is a lot easier than the one of becoming unconscious to conscious. Once you're consciously dreaming, all you really have to look at your hands, look at your body, and recognize I am in a vehicle of consciousness that is not my physical body. And that just shifts you immediately into that recognition. I'm not in my physical body, or I'm having that experience that is that I'm in another vehicle of consciousness. Therefore, you just upgraded your consciousness, and you will feel that shift when you realize this is not my physical body. This is another vehicle of consciousness. You'll feel this shift. You solidify into the state, and it's like you feel this upgrade in your awareness and your energy.
You become superhuman, or something like that. You can do things that normal people can't
Oh,
do.
absolutely. Absolutely. And there's different densities of these bodies. It's not just one vehicle of consciousness. There's many depending on your frequency of consciousness. So each level of consciousness has its own individual vehicle of consciousness or senses that are associated with it, as best as I can explain it from our physical vantage point.
Okay.
So some of your bodies might feel a bit dense. You'll have lucid dream experiences where you might realize, oh, I'm trying to fly, but for some reason I feel heavy. I can't do it.
Okay.
Or I'm only getting 3 inches off the ground. And so you have to investigate at some point if you're bringing some of your dense belief systems with you, and you can actually project from one of your vehicles of consciousness to a yet a more refined state and shift one more time to a higher level.
Like taking a double pill of something and just moving ahead to something, to a new reality again, to a new level, sort of.
Yes. And sometimes you just feel it like you just kind of vibrate into a new state. Sometimes it's more tangible, where you literally feel like you're projecting from your projected state. If that makes any sense.
Great.
It's like a double projection. Most of the time it just you can just feel a shift. But there is a shift where you go from one consensus reality bubble to another consensus reality bubble. It's so you constantly shift. You're shifting all the time. Even in physical life, we're shifting. You'll experience days in your physical reality where you're super heavy.
Yeah,
then there's other days where you're just practically floating in your physical body.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Even in physical terms, we have these different levels of consciousness.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, is it also a different vibratory level? Could you call it like that? That you're vibrating at another level, faster.
Yes.
Yeah. And I had a question, then it just slipped my mind. Why should we do this? Why should we go out and explore ourselves on that level?
It's curiosity.
Uh-huh.
And it's not that everybody should do it. There's really no shoulds in this path. It's follow your passion. And when I say follow, I literally mean act on your passion. Sometimes I say follow, but I always mean act, because the action seals the deal. And then it just depends. What is your passion? Maybe your passion is to project yourself into a two-dimensional field and paint a beautiful painting. Yeah. That's passion just the same as pursuing this. So it really depends if it is your passion. And if it is, then you'll just find a way to get excited about learning all the techniques.
I have heard about some dreams. I won't mention them here publicly, but a lot of teenagers use this as another way of, how shall I put it, meet interesting female persons.
That is, I mean, you'll find yourself meeting all kinds of interesting characters. And of course, it's going to depend on your intention. But many times you will meet other versions of yourself and other versions or other aspects of yourself.
Okay.
So yeah, there's all kinds of interesting meeting people experiences you can have.
Can you do something? Can you heal yourself? Can you look at your own body, your physical body, and see if something is wrong with it, and project healing towards it?
Anything you can do in the physical, you can do in that non-physical, and so you can do that in your physical. That's what healing is all about.
Yeah.
When I project healing energy for others, I'm essentially doing what they inherently know how to do themselves, in a sense, giving them, a kind of permission to heal themselves.
Uh-huh.
So just like in your physical being, you can send loving kindness to your organs, you can scan your body.
Yes.
You can do that in non-physical. It's just that you have these tangible experiences of immediate shifts. And yeah, by all means, you can investigate.
Yeah.
At the same time, here's a little caveat. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you might find yourself being pulled back to your physical body if you bring your focus and consciousness to it through
Of
the
course.
desire to heal.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you have to, maybe that's not the first thing I would do if I would have those experiences. I think a lot of people battle with just staying in the state for a longer period of time
Yeah.
because they get pulled back, either because they get afraid or something happens. So I think in the beginning it's just staying in that state is important. Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
very good point
yeah,
you bring up, because people sometimes are afraid they'll get lost in these out-of-body states, and what
yeah,
if they can't come back?
yeah,
But the actual true issue is, how do you stay out longer? Because you constantly get snapped back to the physical
yeah,
frame of consciousness.
yeah.
So, and the trick to staying out really is to anchor into the sense perceptions in the realm that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like tuning a radio dial, and you have that static. Of course, I'm using a dated analogy here, but it's tuning into that frequency perfectly. And you do that by tuning into the senses that you're perceiving through in the vehicle of consciousness you find yourself in. And so if you find yourself in a physical-like body, and you have two senses that you can focus on that you're used to in your physical,
Mm-hmm.
and that's going to be your sight and your touch.
Mm-hmm.
So if you reach out and just start touching walls, or touching even your non-physical body,
Mm-hmm.
Rubbing your hands together, or really beginning to scrutinize and look into an object, but you want to keep the best word I can think of is agitating the senses.
Yes.
Keep stimulating that senses, because that's what's locking you into that particular frequency, by perceiving through those particular senses that you have in that vehicle of consciousness.
That's good advice. That's good. I could imagine people. I know that I've heard that you should look at your hands. Is that correct?
It's
Just
very, very, very powerful.
yeah. I think you told us.
Yeah, and I discovered that on my own. And later I discovered that, or somebody told me, oh, did you know Carlos Castaneda talks about that? And
Oh,
I think it's just one of those, thousands of years old tradition, probably.
yeah.
I'm guessing that it's so natural to look at your hands and use that as a form of upgrading. So you can upgrade the lucid dream to the out-of-body state by looking at your hands.
Yeah.
And then you can also use looking at your hands as a way to stabilize yourself in the state. You can rub your hands together. That's a common one, because it brings in the vibrational, or the sensation of touch.
Uh-huh.
And
Yes.
so it helps to lock you into that state.
Interesting. If I could you, there are two things I would like to do if I got to that state, and one of them is I would like to go back in time and see if that's possible at all, and see what was Egypt like during the pharaohs, or
Right.
was there Atlantis? How did that look like? And the second thing, I think I would like to talk to my higher self, if that is possible,
Absolutely.
and get some advice.
That some of my most profound experiences are the experiences of the higher self. Whether you call that the soul, the oversoul, the all that is, all these different levels and definitions, but those are the most beautiful experiences.
Yeah.
And you just find yourself in such states of pure love and pure ecstasy. And it gives you a glimpse of what's possible, like this is possible. This is who we are. This is our true nature.
Yeah.
We're only having a temporary experience of feeling individuated and separate from that all that is that we are.
Yeah.
But that's all it is a temporary experience. And that primary reality of that pure love, pure consciousness, that's who we are. That's our true nature.
Yeah.
And the task we've set up for ourselves is to remember that while in the physical frame.
Yeah.
And when you realize that's what we're doing, then these things like the formula, they start to make sense. Well, if I follow my passion, if I act on my passion, it's grounding more and more of that energy, and my life just begins to come alive. And it's you get it. You're learning to translate that state of pure love and pure consciousness, pure ecstasy, pure bliss into your physical body and through your actions. And that's just beautiful. When you realize that's what life is, it's just, it changes everything.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. What happened to me was I started thinking about life differently when I started reading the Seth Material.
Yes.
That was I have always been interested in this, but he had a way of explaining it that just caught me, and I found him late in my late 40s, and that was just amazing. And I started to look at myself in a different way, and that I could that everything around me is actually self-created, more or less, and that I'm all responsible for everything that happens to me, and that everything that
Yes.
surrounds me. And that is both a big responsibility to take, because you cannot just say it's the society's fault or it's his fault or her fault.
My
No,
parents' fault, my,
yeah,
partner's
yeah,
fault. Yeah.
exactly. All that just,
Yeah.
dissipates,
Fades away.
and you stand back as the buck stops with you.
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
but the positive side is that you can do something about it. You don't have to be stuck in that mud, or if you're in a mud. But you can get out of the mud and you can have this amazing life if you want to. Uh,
Yes.
if you understand how to manifest things, which is also another thing of Seth, that you create your own reality and that you can actually manifest objects and situations in your life. And I have had some experiences that were mind-blowing because I put myself into that state and could manifest certain situations. And 10 years ago, I wouldn't even have dreamt about it. I was in the power of the chaos of other people's will, or
Hmm.
something like that. I was not in full power of my life, and I feel much more empowered now.
It's
Yeah.
there's a metaphor here that I just want to tease out because it's really appropriate. Here we are shooting a video, so I'm going to use the video metaphor. And what you're describing sounds like you were getting caught in other people's movies and just showing up
Yeah,
as what role they assigned to you. But
exactly.
now you're awakening to, I get to decide the role and I'm the director and I can create my own life. I can create my own movie, and you can
Exactly.
invite others to participate as you've invited me to participate in your movie, but now you're
Exactly.
in charge of your life and it's beautiful.
Yeah. It's exactly, and it's sort of because I have lived a large part of my life in a sort of fear of things happening to me. I couldn't just relax, and that has changed dramatically, and I can feel that fear dissipating every month. I get better, and that also means that I'm ready to try more things. I don't hold back.
Yes.
I just do it if I want to. And again, my life has changed a lot, and I could imagine that those people who are watching this, that I mean, you should really try to, if you haven't read about Seth, or you mentioned Bashar, or there are other also that propagate the same material. Do yourself a favor and read about it. And there's some much material out there now on the internet, and you can join Facebook groups, and you can join this channel or Tom's channel and learn a lot about these things, and it will change your life. I guarantee it. I guarantee it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How has Seth changed your life, and how did you stumble upon him?
Okay, so in my early 20s, I was really looking for a bridge between right livelihood and my spiritual passion, my desire to know, to the curiosity of spirituality and these multi-dimensions. So I knew there was more, but I was handed a set of beliefs based on, you got to work hard for the money, you got to struggle, you got to do things you don't want to do, yada,
Exactly.
yada, yada, we know the script.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so finding that bridge, that was a huge struggle at that time
Mhm.
because it meant letting go of a lot of these boxes that I've been preconditioned into
Exactly.
and striking out on my own. So I went into the healing arts. The healing arts are a happy medium between, right livelihood. You can have service to the world. You can offer something, but yet you can maintain that strong connection to energy, to spirituality. So that was my happy medium.
Okay.
And I started a Qigong practice, which is a form of Chinese energetic medicine. And concurrently, spontaneously, I started reading Seth. And even more so, my Qigong teacher's name was also Seth. So it's kind of a fun synchronicity.
Yeah, yeah.
But what I noticed was the way Seth explained energy
Mm-hmm.
was just like, it was so amazingly clear.
Yeah.
And then I would read the Qigong books and it'd be like, it's kind of muddy. It's there, but you have to kind of sift through culturalisms and ways of saying things and outdated ways of framing. So I actually realized that the practice was amazing, but who explained it the best was actually Seth. He explained what was happening to me in just these most eloquent, beautiful terms that really made sense. And they didn't seem to have all that cultural distortion that a lot of these other spiritual texts, they seem to have these, certain frames that are a bit out. I feel like we're growing out of those old definitions.
One thing you just mentioned how Seth explains certain things. The way he explains all that is, it's like a poem.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a video on YouTube where a man he recites from the book, and it's like a poem. And I will put a link on it down where you can watch it, and it's just so beautiful. And that's not only what all that is. He explains so many other things so beautifully and so easy to.
Yes.
So when you hear it, you say, "Oh yes, but I knew this sort of." But
yes.
Right? It's that
yes,
feeling of recognition.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's telling us things that we already know. It's that we've forgotten these truths. We've have all this cultural baggage and socialization, and we've been trained away from perceiving these things that are our true natural self.
Yes.
And we've created these rigid personalities, and Seth comes in and says, "Oh, knock, 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 remember this?"
Yeah.
It's almost like he's a representative of our inner self, reminding us, like, "Hey, remember all these truths, this is where you come from. This is who you are."
Yeah.
And you're like, "Yeah, I remember that. So it's beautiful to have that somebody there to guide us to reawaken back to ourselves."
Yes, and he doesn't just. I mean, I think he wrote 25 books or something with Jane.
A lot, yeah.
A lot of. I don't know if I'm correct, but that's a lot of knowledge. And he told that what was amazing is that he could. Jane told us, or Robert. Her husband, Robert Butts, told that he could stop at one point and then continue several months later at the next sentence, and just there was no.
Without skipping a beat, yeah.
I mean, that was just amazing. I mean, for him, probably there's no time because he is somewhere else. But for us,
it's
it was
simultaneous. Yeah.
Exactly. But what I wanted to say was that he went into so many things around life that when you read all the books, you have a pretty much complete picture of what is happening around us, both on the physical level, energetical level, on our psychological level, spiritual level.
Yes.
I mean, he just walks you through every stage, and when you've read them all and you've read them again and again, you're sort of graduated in life, sort of. And
Absolutely.
I would imagine that it would be so good to for young people to read, because their lives would change drastically. I think if they had this knowledge really very early in their lives.
What I'm discovering is a lot of the younger generations don't come with such a high degree of amnesia that some of us older folks, shall we say, came in with. The themes of exploration on the planet are shifting, and this is the age of awakening. So each subsequent generation seems to come in with less of the distortions and the amnesia. Now, that's a blanket statement. Of course, there's pockets where it's more intense and less intense, but I find that Seth was perfectly cued for our time period, for us to awaken.
Yes.
And the things that he says are becoming more and more common knowledge, even in the sciences, quantum physics and whatnot.
Exactly. Yes.
Things that he said were radical. Now people are talking about it. It's like parallel
Yes.
reality. Okay, like let's talk about multi dimensions. Okay, let's talk about it.
Yeah. And we couldn't have talked about this in the 80s or the 90s, and I remember this without being thought of as not
Nuts.
quite there. Yeah. And now presenting it for the world to see on YouTube. I mean, we have really taken some steps into another direction. And can you also
Absolutely.
feel the interest there is about
Yeah.
this subject, the spiritualism, and people are
Oh,
just
absolutely.
thirsty for answers and excited.
And I know there's probably some people out there wondering, well, if we're going to such an age of awakening, why is there so much turmoil in this society?
Mm.
And the answer to that is that when you do awaken to the light is going to shed and reveal all that which is in the shadow. It's gonna bring things to the light by definition.
Yeah.
So it's like you turn on the light in the closet or in the basement, and all of a sudden you notice it's a mess down there.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening is as we awaken, there's things that were previously unconscious.
Yeah.
Everything's being brought to the surface,
Yes.
and that's part of the awakening process. Buckle up, strap in, and
Yeah.
it's going to be a wild ride, but where we're going is it's beautiful, it's integrative, and it's us that we get to choose how to use these upheavals, to use them in positive ways or to use them in negative ways. And so those of us choosing to use it in positive ways, we will shift to the version of Earth where we have integrated, where we have chosen the curriculum and we've moved through it. And now we can begin to build that society of integration where this is common knowledge.
Yes.
And we have seen those shifts, from the 80s to the 90s to the
Oh, very
2000s.
much. Just around some of the things regarding what we would call perhaps political correctness on some issues, where there are things that just can't do anymore. It's just not not allowed, but it's just not. It's out of time, out of place. We don't want to have anything to do with it.
We
And
can't sweep things under the rug anymore.
no, no, we know it's wrong, and we're stepping away from it. And now there can be good ways of manifesting this through political correctness, but there are also other ways where it's just perfect that we have somebody who stands up and say we don't want to do this anymore. Don't want to tolerate it.
Yes, and ultimately it comes to following your passion. I think that's, it's easy sometimes to get lost in like the currents and the 80s of the society.
Yeah.
But ultimately it comes down to if you translate more of your soul's energy into action, you're going to live in the world that's commensurate with those actions that you're taking. In other words, you're going to live in the world commensurate with the vibration behind the actions that you're taking.
And
so
yeah.
it's rather simple.
Seth also said, if you want to change the world, you have to start with yourself and change how you think about the world. And that's true. And then we say, yeah, but that won't change the world. That will just change me. But if you remember that you create your own reality, you're changing everything in your reality by changing how you think and how you.
Yeah, here's another way of looking at that, which Seth talked about simultaneous time and that everything exists. Mm-hmm. And so we're literally shifting to reality. So when you say, oh, I'm going to change myself, but that won't change the world, that is actually true from a certain point of view, because you don't change that world that you're in. You shift to a version of Earth where that is the reality already, which matches the vibration. So that's why trying to change other people it feels futile, because ultimately it's about you shifting yourself and then shifting to the version of Earth that is commensurate with that new vibrational state you have chosen to be in.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, that's true. Because he also says that we are actually shifting realities several times a day, if I'm not correct, if I'm not mistaken. Every time we take a decision that could have gone two ways, we're actually choosing one reality and letting the other one. And that
that
yes.
Yeah, that phrase, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. sometimes,
Yeah.
as you know, you realize we have these expressions, and that's literally what it is. You
Yeah.
wake up and you make a certain choice, and boom, you're in this reality.
And
Or
that day
you made
just
another choice.
goes, and you
Yes,
just
that's
know,
right.
oh, I have chosen this. And now that I'm aware of it, I mean, I can perhaps do something to change it.
Yes.
But there are times when I wake up in the morning, it's it's not me, or there's something different. I mean, it
Mhm.
wasn't the same place that I left yesterday when I fell asleep. And
Yes.
so that's very interesting. Uh, just to because I think my daughter, we're just shifting tracks again. My daughter is very interested in healing. She's 26
Oh,
and she wants to move into that world of spirituality and so on. And you're a healer. You have done this a large part of your life. What would you give her as advice on how to nourish her that profession, or how to step into
mhm.
that life?
Well, first of all, I would tell her to trust herself and to trust her instincts and to trust a beautiful note that she came to play, because we each came to play our own unique vibration, our unique note in the symphony of life. So if we're playing our note, we're going to fit in. If we're
Mm.
trying to play what other people have conditioned us to play, we're going to be, we're not going to be in step with our true selves, with our true vibration. So we're going to create discord within ourselves. So that's the first step. And then just, the formula. It's, act on your passion to the
Okay.
best of your ability
Yeah.
with zero insistence on the outcome, and then staying in a positive state regardless what happens. That it comes from Bashar, but I feel like they've really distilled it down to the bare essentials, and it's complete. It doesn't leave
Yes.
anything out.
No.
And
No.
so I would inspire her to act on whatever
Yeah.
motivates her, whatever gives her joy, whatever gives her passion. If it seems like she's being drawn to an unusual healing modality, explore that. It's
Yeah.
like we sometimes get railroaded into, well, I want to be a healer, but I want to be conventional enough. So let me choose something that's kind of settling
Yeah.
in between the two.
Yeah.
I would just say go follow your passion,
Yeah.
act on that passion,
Yeah. Yeah.
and unpack that, and
Yeah.
just trust it.
Should she take some lessons, courses, or is this something you can do by trying to heal your family members?
Well, I mean, it's again, it depends on her individual path, and her
Mm.
passion will reveal to her which type of healing. Some people are more hands-on, some people are more energetic, some people are more, working through psychological, through talk type therapy. So
Yes.
finding that approach that really speaks to her,
And
and
then
then just developing that, and keep expanding on that.
yeah. And the road will appear
Absolutely. It's
for the
see that
seeker. Yeah.
the key is when you take one step, the next step is revealed. If you don't take one step, you're standing still, and then you start defining it as, oh, I feel stuck. Nothing's moving. Well, yeah, because you're not moving,
Exactly.
So, and don't be afraid to make mistakes, because there's no such thing as mistakes. Sometimes we explore things through the contrast of it going down a path that we don't realize we don't prefer.
Mhm.
You can define more clearly. It can clarify for you what path you really do prefer. So nothing truly is a mistake. Therefore, when you act, then at least, maybe you need to cross a few things off your list. You want to try this, you want to try that, you want to try all these different things. Later down the line, that might be very useful that you've explored the healing arts and really honed in on what you truly love. So there's no time wasted. There's no mistakes. The only time you waste is not acting, is
Yeah. Yeah.
waiting for something to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, because yeah, to manifest something, I have this pyramid of a manifestation that I've built out of the Seth Material. I will link to it somewhere, and I have something in the at the bottom as the primary is belief, the beliefs, the belief system. That is what is
Yes.
manifesting in your world. That is the main cause of a manifestation, and then I think I have emotions as the
Yes.
second, which is the like the fuel that brings everything into manifestation. And then I think I have a few more steps, and at the end I have action. It's like
Yes.
doing something to kickstart
Yes.
what you want.
Absolutely. You have to anchor the vibration through action.
Exactly. Oh, very well put. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, because it's like if you want to win at the lottery, and you have to buy the ticket to
Correct.
sort of but do something and show that you trust in yourself. For example, if you want the
Yes.
car, go out
Yes.
and look at the car, and or yeah. So
Yeah, it's
so
that old saying of, if you want to win, you have to play. To
exactly. Yeah.
Going on your lottery analogy, of course, that becomes more universal.
Yes.
If you want to win, you got to play. You got to take the action.
Yes.
You gotta trust yourself
Yeah.
and manifest through action, because action is the language of physical reality. So if you want to speak in physical terms, you're translating your soul's energy through action, and that's what makes things happen.
I couldn't have put it better myself. I there is this feeling, or I don't know if I read it somewhere, where you are meant to be with other people because that forms those challenges in your life that will make you learn more about life and I mean if you put yourself in a cave or isolate yourself in a room, I mean that could be good in some lifetimes. I could imagine to hone some inner spirituality. I don't know, but
Yes.
every time I have tried to do it in my life and pull back from everybody, and something happened that just put me out back again
Right.
with other people, and that's because that's where the action happens.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
You're not learning anything by just sitting in a room and dwelling or thinking about life. You have to act things
And
out.
just to make that distinction, of course, there are certain lifetimes, people
Yes,
spend in the cave meditating, and that's all well and good if that is your theme of exploration, if that's what you
exactly.
came to Earth to
Yes,
explore. Most of us who are living in these times, we came here to explore, bumping into each other and bumping into all these contrasting ideas.
exactly.
And rather than labeling it in negative ways, when you hear contrasting ideas, you see contrasting realities, that's actually very stimulating.
Exactly.
Stimulates a lot of growth, and it's very exciting if you want
Yes,
to look at it that way.
yes, yes, yes,
As long
exactly.
as we see it that, nobody can truly impose their beliefs on us unless we allow them to do so. And then that takes that fear out of, like, oh, these people believe something different. I need to convince them otherwise. Or these people are doing something else. Oh, they're going to impinge on my reality. I need to do something to push against them. It's
Yes,
actually a matter of honing your vibration, because you have a right to manifest here as well. And
exactly.
so really focusing on that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I would like just maybe if we could talk about your channeling. We're
Yes?
not having, I think maybe we have 5 minutes left or something. Could you tell us a little bit about that? You have started to channel recently, and
Yes.
I remember from earlier that that wasn't part of your uh,
Repertoire.
repertoire, if I could say so. But you have started at the. Could you tell us a little bit? And who are you channeling? Is it your higher self?
Yes.
Who is that person?
So it's the higher self, higher mind.
Okay.
That's how I define it. And so it's separate of aspect selves, soul and oversoul.
Mhm.
It's coming through a kind of a it's not partitioning itself out to, like, oh, this is an aspect from, another time period or from another civilization or from, another dimension. It's really coming in as it's the composite wisdom through the soul,
Yeah.
through the higher mind, and then into me. Now, sometimes I do get flavors of aspects, which is interesting, and I'll be able to tell, like, oh, it's coming from a slightly different flavor this time.
Uh,
It feels different. The voice changes a little bit. So I know I'm not always. It's not always the
the
same
same
aspect.
person.
Or
Okay.
yeah, there's other flavors that are
Yeah.
coming in.
Seth has Seth and Seth too, or Jane had
That's right.
Seth, and she also channeled Seth too, which was a totally different aspect of.
Yes, yes.
And how
So,
has that enriched your life in some way?
oh,
The
absolutely.
channeling.
Yes. It's that's like I just described, that spark of following my passion. And let me just be clear, like, this was very fear inducing to me to
Okay.
go into channeling. brought up a lot of fear, a lot of issues. So
Okay.
I was working through a lot of limiting and negative beliefs about what will happen if I actually pursue this. So for many years, I've always wanted to channel, but I've been afraid, not afraid of what I'm going to open up to.
Yeah.
It's I'm afraid of how people will see me, you know, which
Ah,
is
okay.
interesting.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay. You became self-aware of how people
Yes.
saw you. Yeah.
And so I've read that book, Opening the Channel, I swear like 4 times or maybe even more. And finally, just listening to Bashar, like a lot of people ask Bashar, well, I want to channel, what do I do? And he's basically like, you act. And, it's always the same answer, you act. And it's like, oh man, I got to act. Oh no, that's scary. I
Yeah.
wanted it to just come knocking on my door, like for Jane, I wanted an entity to appear and just say, it's time to begin. It's like, no, the way it showed up for me is I had to take the action and just get a trusted friend and just say, look, I want to practice this. Are you willing to do it with me?
Yeah.
She said yes. And I'm like, okay, ask me questions. I'll go into channeling state. You ask me questions. We'll practice. And that's what I did. I'm just like, and just did it very regularly. And
Yeah.
God bless that friend because it really, once I started doing it, I'm like, oh, I can do this. Like, okay, this
Yeah.
is, I didn't get burned at the stake. I didn't get
Okay.
dragged out with
Interesting.
pitchforks. It's like
Yeah.
nobody
No.
ridiculed me. It's
But
like, it's that taking that action.
what I was thinking was, why didn't you just channel for yourself? Why did you have to have somebody to channel to?
There's something about a person asking questions that helps to ground the energy and completes a circuit.
Uh-huh.
So she asks the question, or whatever friend it is, they ask that question, and then it pulls the energy through me like a circuit.
Okay.
And once I did it with another person, I actually realized, oh, I could just vocalize out loud and channel.
Hmm.
And then that's what I started doing. And actually, one of the tricks I did was I actually recorded it.
Okay.
So now I had this external device, the video camera, and I would practice channeling, just for myself. I wasn't going to post it anywhere yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but it was like I hardly ever reviewed the videos, but it was the act of taking the action and the letting it be physicalized. So it was becoming physicalized through the video, and it
Okay.
becomes physicalized through the voice. So
Yeah.
there's actually something about acting it out that really makes the difference. Whereas
Okay.
before I would like meditate, I was very familiar with meditations and
Yeah.
the OBE induction techniques and all this,
Yes.
but it's the act of vocalizing out or out loud. And that's the first action is it becomes physical when your voice is saying it out loud. It takes another step to physicality because now there's a video recording it. Now there's an actual physical video
Yeah.
of the channeling session.
Yeah.
Then when there's a friend asking the question, now there's a being here who's perceiving me. That's a physical being
Okay.
asking the question, pulling the energy through me. So it's taking the steps
Yeah.
to physicalize it. And that's what really
Yeah.
kicked it into gear.
It's like the observer effect in the double slit experiment, sort of that somebody's consciousness is sort of pulling things out of you and
Yeah.
changing you in a way.
And it's interesting you say that because it reminds me that as a child, I wasn't really encouraged into these explorations.
No.
So it's like I had to find a way to validate myself because I didn't build up the neural circuits
Yes.
to have that. As many of the children are being born now, they have
Yeah.
an easier time of it, in general terms,
Yes.
because we're a society that is more accepting, whereas when I
Exactly.
was born, it was a hammer and nails society.
Yeah.
And, I was born in Eastern Europe
Yeah.
and it was like, we didn't do that. We
No.
don't play that
No.
here,
No. 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 I was born in Eastern Europe too, so I remember it quite well. That wasn't the part of I mean, religion and spirituality. That was just a no-no.
Right.
It wasn't part of
Unless
the
it was
lives.
through the religious terms of the times,
Yeah, yeah, or
through
the
their church and
sanctioned
whatnot.
channels. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. Yes.
Tom, this has been a wonderful interview
Yes.
or conversation, and again, it was a conversation with Seth about Seth, and we came around a lot of things. So I would really I would really like to do this again, maybe perhaps
Absolutely.
in a more, we can do it as a live session. We can have people chiming in or asking questions. So I really look forward to meeting you next time. And
Yeah, so let's make it happen.
I will put in the comments below where you can be reached. Your channel, you have a YouTube channel, you have a Facebook
Thank you.
page, and your channel daily, weekly or something like that. You have a channeling group.
Yes, I do have. It's once a month now, and I'll probably end up starting multiple channeling groups for the different, because there's the one I have now is very set, a lot of setties in there.
Yeah,
But I'd like to also open up a more general public type
great,
group
great.
as well.
Well, thank you, Tom. And
Yes, thank you for having me.
it was great. So see you next time.
Yes, bye-bye.
Bye.